everyone. This is Stephen Balch, your instructor for Legal Environment of Business at Ozarka College. This morning, what I'd like to do is give you some feedback on the chapters 20 through 22 activities that I finished grading this morning. And then I'm going to go over some information about what we've got coming up due next for chapters 23 and 24. All right. So the first thing is, like I said, I did finish grading the chapters 20 through 22 activities this morning. A lot of the work I had graded yesterday before I left, but a few of you turned in the work after I left yesterday, so I finished grading those this morning. Go ahead and look at your grades for those activities as soon as you can and read the corresponding grading comments. If I did have to count any points off, I was very specific on why. But if you do have questions about any of that, just let me know. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have. Overall, most of you did well on the chapters 20 through 22 activities. And like I always tell you, I really appreciate those of you that are putting the time and effort into the class. So keep up the good work on that. The discussion that we had for chapters 20 through 22 that dealt with the Electronic Funds Transfer Act, I thought that went very well. A lot of you got confused on exactly whether the EFTA would actually apply in the particular case that we were looking at. And as I explained in my replies to the discussion last night, the EFTA in this particular case would not apply. The reason it doesn't apply is because the EFTA deals specifically with bank transactions. Okay, the EFTA deals with online, or not online, but automatic ATM, basically ATM transactions with a bank account or debit card. And in this particular case that we were looking at, the consumer was actually using a credit card. And credit cards are handled under a different law, and I explained what that law was in my reply. So if you haven't read my last reply on that discussion, I would invite you to do so that you can better understand my reasoning for the EFTA actually not applying to this particular case. But there is another law that does apply to credit card transactions. So most of you missed that. So I wanted to make sure that you understood that in this particular case, the law that it was discussing in the case study does not actually apply to this particular transaction. All right. So another thing to kind of point out is when a judge is hearing a case like this, one of the first things they need to do is determine which law, if any, applies to the particular transaction. And in this case, if you're thinking that the EFTA actually applies in this case, the judge would be very quick to point out that it doesn't apply because EFTA has a very specific set of transactions that it applies to, and mostly bank transactions. And so it would not apply in this case because the consumer in this particular case used a credit card and not a debit card or a bank card. Okay, so just kind of keep that in mind when you're looking at legal cases like this, dealing with business laws. One of the first things you have to do is determine if the particular law that it's discussing in the case actually applies to the case. That's the very first step. Before you can determine whether the facts of the case either actually violate the law or not, before you even get to that step, you have to determine whether the law applies. Okay? So just kind of, like I said, let me know if you have questions about that. Let's see. That brings us to what we've got coming up due next. So if we go to the activities page in MyOzarka, go to the activities page here. Right now we are on the kind of the end of week 11, kind of approaching the end portion of week 11. Of course, we just had work due last night, and now we've got our next set of activities due under week 12. Specifically, Friday, November 8th is when chapters 23 and 24 are due. So you have the assignment for those chapters, the test, and the discussion all due by Friday of next week. So you've got a little bit over a week to be working on those activities. So I would go ahead and get started as soon as possible to give yourself plenty of time, and then you can ask questions. Have time to ask me questions if you ran into any problems or have any questions about anything. And most of you have been good about doing that. So, but just kind of be working on those activities. Remember all the learning resources that you have available to you on the assignment page. You have the PowerPoint slides. Of course, you have your textbook as a resource, and you also have the videos that I've linked on the assignment page that basically explain each of the concepts that are covered on the assignment. All right? And then, of course, you've got your test and your discussion. Now, let me tell you a little bit about what we're going to be looking at in chapters 23 and 24. Starting with chapter 23, we're going to be learning more about negotiable instruments. Remember, in chapters 20 through 22, we were introduced to what negotiable instruments are, the different types of negotiable instruments, like checks and bonds and so forth. And then we also learned about the various parties to a negotiable instrument. Well, in chapters 23 and 24, we're going to kind of take what we've learned already and kind of expand on that. And so in chapter 23, we're going to learn about negotiation and discharge of a negotiable instrument. And specifically, you're going to learn about things like endorsement requirements for negotiable instruments, the types of endorsements, the liabilities of the endorser, and also the various ways that a negotiable instrument can be discharged. All right? And then in chapter 24, that's going to cover the liabilities and defenses for negotiable instruments. So in chapter 24 specifically, you're going to learn about the types of liabilities for negotiable instruments. You'll also learn about a special type of holder of a negotiable instrument called a holder in due course. And in fact, our discussion for chapters 23 and 24 is going to deal specifically with a holder in due course. All right? So you'll learn more about that in chapter 24. And then also in that chapter, you're going to learn about holders of consumer paper. You're going to learn about the various types of defenses to endorsement of a negotiable instrument, which are limited, universal, and hybrid defenses. So you're going to learn about basically, again, the liabilities and defenses that the parties have for a negotiable instrument. All right? And so be working on those activities for chapters 23 and 24. Again, let me know if you have any questions. And that's all I have for you for today. So enjoy your weekend and enjoy next week. And I will talk to you again next time. Thank you.